Hi everyone, and welcome to this 15th edition of BMI Inspires. Niki and Moniek here from the Digital Creative Village to talk about stuff. Because actually we all like to buy stuff, right? Lots of it. We like to buy products, shoes, the fastest and greatest car. We are stuck in a system that makes us believe that stuff equals happiness. We also buy stuff because we want to be in fashion. But also over time, we buy stuff because we are used to convenience. I mean, it's logical that you get a new iPhone when you renew your contract, right? We also buy stuff because we actually think that we are doing it good in a sustainable point of view. Like buying that new fridge or washing machine that is actually using less energy makes sense and makes us feel good, right?
So what we see over time, we got used to just buying and producing more and more stuff, and we lost track of a realistic product life cycle. Remember back in the days when you just had one TV screen for your entire family, and when it would break down, you would bring it to someone who would repair it because you had a plenty-year warranty? What does that look like today? Question: how many people are there in your household and how many screens are there? Let us know in the chat if it's still one or one per person. And what do you do when they break down? Do you have them fixed, or do you click and buy a new one because it's more in fashion, it's more convenient, or you're thinking that you're making the most sustainable option? And we see this happening in electronics, but also in other industries like fashion and food. Because why do you need a jeans for every occasion? How many unworn jeans are there in your closet at this moment? And when was the last time you threw fruit or vegetables away that were actually still fine to use, but the packaging back to different? What we see is that the time between producing stuff and it becoming obsolete has significantly shortened over the past decades, leaving us knee-deep in our own waste. Needless to say, we're running out of resources to produce at the pace we're consuming and throwing out stuff. In fact, in order to sustain Monique's and my buying behavior, we need 3.7 planets to do so. And we don't have to tell you guys that this is impossible. There simply is no planet B.
So it's more and more obvious that our materials economy in the system is in crisis. So we are in a desperate need to redesign it. And we want to show you that going circular is no longer for the tree huggers only. So what are we going to do today? We are going to work on our next step in redesigning our economy. We are going to inspire you with companies and give you examples of companies that are already in the forefront in this movement. And therefore, we asked Lisa from IKEA, a client of us, to join us later today to inspire us and to let us know how IKEA is making that shift as well. What we also would like to know from you, and that's where we want to have that interaction with you, is what your circular ambition is. If you have any questions or if you have any ambitions, please let us know in the chat. We are super curious to hear all about it. If you have any questions during this BMI Inspires to us or maybe to Lisa directly, if you have any ideas, please feel free to use the chat for that as well. If you see an interesting question for someone else that you really like to be answered, click on the thumbs up, and then that question will be immediately shown to our moderators, Joyce and Ralph, who are here in the Digital Creative Village as well, to help you answer that question.
So as said, we want to talk to you about moving away from linear and into a circular economy. So ultimately what we want to do is move away from the take, make, waste business model that we're currently in and work towards a business model where we actually design, make and take within the sources of the planet. So it's about using resources rather than using them up. And as said, it's no longer for the tree huggers only. There's lots of people involved. Here is another question for you. How many organizations do you think are behind the Ellen MacArthur Foundation today? For those of you who don't know the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, it's a UK-based NGO that's here to accelerate our transition to a circular economy. And they're really at the forefront of this movement and thought leaders, so go and check them out. But we're curious, how many organizations are involved today? Because what we want to explain to you is that circular is actually a very successful business model. It's a business for business. In fact, what we saw last time at our BMI Inspires about the stakeholder shift is that companies who put purpose over profit are far more successful over the long term. What we see is that there's organizations who have a circular DNA, such as Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, that we saw in the beginning of this presentations. And we see companies that boldly choose to change their shift towards a circular business model, like Unilever, IKEA, and Niki. So big companies are all in the same game to go to a circular economy.
Yeah. And what is interesting about those companies is actually that they have three things in common. Number one is that they all have a bold vision on making impact. For example, Unilever, how you described it, they already decided 10 years ago that they wanted to become world's most sustainable business in the world by making a sustainable living a commonplace for 8 billion people. They have been putting its money where its mouth is ever since. So it's super interesting to learn from them because they also claim that this is the one and only way forward and one and only way doing business. Another example is actually Fairphone. They want to create a more fairer and more sustainable electronic industry. They want to do that by creating a more sustainable phone, by putting planet and people first in a way in building their business. And what is interesting about this example is that Fairphones are designed in a modular way. So if something is broken down, it's super easy to only repair that specific part of your phone. And that's prolonging the upcycle to 5 years. So you can extend the lifetime of this phone for 5 years. And more importantly, these phones are designed in good ways, actually, by using fair trade materials, by recycled plastics, by employees working in fair conditions. So clearly they are setting a new standard in this electronic industry. It makes you want to reconsider to buy that iPhone that we talked in the beginning about. What do you do?
The second thing we see with these companies is when you move to circular is that you need to be in it for the long term. Change really doesn't happen overnight. And you need to restructure your way you do business because you need to put becoming resilient over efficiency. And another thing we see is that we cannot solve these big issues by ourselves. You need to do it together. So you need to involve your customers and partners on our missions to circular. To come back to our question earlier, I don't know how many of you guessed correctly, it's number C. 850 companies are already involved in transitioning to a circular business model. So they're all working for the same mission. An excellent example of this partnership is Trove. They're really a circular powerhouse, and they're helping fashion companies such as Patagonia, Eileen Fisher, and Rai in their reselling business. So it's second, third, fourth-hand clothing. Just by comparison, resales is growing 20 times faster than usual retail today. So it's an interesting business as such. So it's super interesting from your point of view to pursue this as well. But actually, these companies are not working together to sell more. They're actually there to show you that your jeans can last a second, third, and fourth lifetime. They're showing that the product life cycle that we talked about at the beginning is actually way longer than we assume at the moment. So they're really making a difference by working together.
The third and final thing we want to share with you is that these companies have in common that they heavily invest in innovation, both on product as well on business model level. They do that in order to redesign the system by making use of the latest technologies. I think when you look at Nike, for example, their purpose is to unite the world through sport, through a healthy, to create a healthy planet and an equal playing field for all. In order to get there, they massively invest in innovation and in shifting towards that circular business model. They do that on the one hand by creating products, by designing shoes that are made from factory waste. Niki knows Nike quite well. So this is just released.
Yeah,
Niki?
last week. It's the Space Hippie made from waste.
Yeah, super interesting. So they do that on product level, but they also do that on a business model level, as discussed. They do that with the Nike Adventure Club, where they actually give a subscription business model for kids to use and reuse their shoes. Now, we have another interesting client as well.
Yes. So what we see is it's small steps, but it's big companies that are taking these small steps. So it's really about making impact. So I'm quite honored to welcome Lisa, fellow rebel of our organization. Lisa's circular business designer at IKEA Group. So we're super pleased to have you here today, Lisa, to answer some of our questions that we have on how IKEA is actually making the shift to a circular business model. I think you're still on mute, so let's just wait for Lisa to be unmuted.
Yes, now yes. I think I'm unmuted.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, we've been working together for a while now on different projects. And I know from experience that you're super passionate about the circular economy. So the first question would be, what are your personal drivers to be part of the movement?
Well, I think my personal driver is to really make a difference and to enable people to also make good choices. And it's been my driver all from the beginning when I started working for IKEA. And even though I didn't work with sustainability from the beginning, I've always felt that it can be part of the work I do in IKEA. So I'm very happy for that opportunity to really see how can we improve the lives for the many, and also making sure that we are doing that in a good way.
Yeah, perfect. Because we're really curious. We saw that we have companies that are circular by DNA, but also that are making the shift. And I think IKEA is one of the good examples of the latter. What was the trigger for you guys to actually start making a shift towards a circular business model?
I think it all started looking at the resource side of things and the scarcity of resources coming up. And then, of course, also the climate crisis we're in, and taking a stand on that and really making sure that we are designing a business model for the future. And that's where it all started. But from my side, where we work, I represent IKEA, which is the biggest franchisee of the IKEA concept, organizing almost 90% of the stores in the world. And we are very much then connected to the offer to the customer and the meeting with the customer. So we are not involved so much in the design because that is handled by IKEA. But I think, so looking at our trigger on top of these two other, with the resource scarcity and the climate, then we were also looking into the customer side of it. Because we realized that if we want to be relevant for the future, we really need to figure out how this is connected to the many people and the way they look at things. And we started to explore by going out and listening to people all over the world. And we learned a lot, I must say. I think it was fantastic. We learned about really how people look at how things come into the home, how it lives life at home and how it leaves home. And what kind of value people see in things, like you said before, the stuff. And that people saw both economic value, functional value, emotional value. And we also saw that people had a lot of ambitions with their things and wanted to do the right thing, but it was not always easy to do that. And it was not always easy to find the convenient solutions to do that. And I also think that one of the things we saw was across all the markets we went to, we saw that there's something common, that people in general don't want to be wasteful, but they really want to make the most out of things. And that, of course, is something that fits very well also with what we want to achieve and how we want to do things in IKEA.
Yeah, because you have a mission or a vision to create a better everyday life for the many people. Well, you mentioned just now already that you actually spoke to a lot of those people on your mission. How is sustainability fitting into this vision at the moment?
I mean, everything we do, we're guided by our vision to create a better everyday life for the many people. And that also means that we need to take the stand with the people that have thin wallets. And we see that there's an increasing amount of people entering a more consuming middle class, but we also know that we just have one planet we need to share the resources of. So I think what's become very clear for us, that if we're going into this century, we cannot have an old business model from the 19th century. It really has to be something else. So we are designing for the future, you can say, and our vision is leading us in that.
Yeah, it's super interesting to hear about that. And I think what is interesting as well is, how do you interact with the others, right? How do you manage to get everyone on board in this mission? Could you?
I think here again, our vision is really a good starting point, because it's pointing us in the right direction, and sustainability and making the most out of things is really a clear part of that, and it's also clear in our values.
Yeah,
we are a very value-based company, so that helps us a lot. And then also to have we have leaders who take a clear stand that this is really the direction we need to take, and that also gives us a lot of help, of course. Having this change in the organization. And I think when it comes down to it, it's also very clear that this is what our customers and also what we as co-workers are expecting from our employers. So this is the way we need to go.
Yeah, and also the other way around recruitment, is that already for you a moment where you check in on how their ambition is to get them on the right track?
Yeah, we're very focused on the values when we recruit.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the most important aspect, I would say, and of course then sustainability is part of that, of those values.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned already, Lisa, you're a big organization divided over different bigger business units. How do you cooperate in achieving the vision together? Because as you said, you're not necessarily in charge of design, whereas designing the furniture is actually a big part of prolonging the life cycle, or seeing how we get the products into the house of people. How do you cooperate internally within these organizations?
Well, we have set some common ambitions and commitments to become circular by 2030, and that is shared by across the different entities within IKEA. And we have agreed that we will be offering circular products. We will produce our products only from renewable and recycled materials. We will find new ways to offer people circular opportunities in how they acquire, care for, and pass on products. And we have decided also that this is really the moment where we need to join forces with others. So these 4 commitments we have made together, and that's our starting point to work together.
Perfect. It's I think it's very interesting to see that if it comes from a strong leadership position and it's part of your vision, and as said, you're in it for the long term, you can really start changing the game. So perhaps we can share some of the initiatives that your guys are working on to achieve these ambitious 2030 goals.
Yes, we are. I mean, we also have a history going back of trying to do more from less and being resourceful in our culture. So some of the things that we are doing today also has a foundation in the past. So for example, if we talk about things that are meeting the customer today, we see that we have these as-is corners in the stores, and that's where we for a long time have taken care of products that maybe have a scratch, or maybe it's a show model that we need to sell and give a new life to that. And in the past couple of years, we've also invested in repackaging machines in the store, and And last year, we in Inca, we packaged 47 million products using these machines, and that's one simple way for us to make sure that we don't that we're not wasteful. Also, in this as is corner, in many markets, we also offer buyback and resell of used products, also to give people an opportunity to find a way to pass on in a good way. And we are offering spare parts service for fittings, and I think last year we had over 1 million orders of that. And when we look at the more innovation aspects that maybe is not in the market yet, we are of course exploring about how to prolong the life of products. And we are also exploring new ways of accessing our products and alternatives to ownership.
Yeah, and what we also saw is that it's difficult to do everything by yourself. So I know that you're partnering with Blocket, for example, in Sweden. How do you go about these cooperations to achieve the vision together?
Yeah, we realize, of course, that we need to work with others and to really see we cannot do this on our own. So we have collaboration partners in markets where the stores are. For example, as you mentioned, Blocket in Sweden, which is like a secondhand platform. We're also working together with Ellen MacArthur, as you also mentioned earlier, as a partner. And we have, of course, looking into how we work together with our suppliers and our close partners to see how we can figure things out together. But this is, of course, key that we cannot do this on our own. This is a big task. We really need help from others.
Yeah. And do you face some challenges in that? I can imagine in achieving that vision, next to learnings, because we end with some positive things. But do you face challenges?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we face challenges every day. It's a big organization, and there are a lot of things we need to change, and we're only in the beginning.
Yeah.
So there are many challenges. But I think we have a good foundation with our vision and our shared values, and that takes us a long way. But still, it's every day it's challenging.
And what would be your biggest learning so far, like where other companies can work on or think about more?
I think our biggest learning and our aha moment was really when we went out and started talking to people and listening, because then we realized that it's about solving a problem in a circular way rather than to go to market with a circular solution.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, we were looking very much at like, okay, what is circularity? How can we do that? But we realized we were very inside out in that work. And then when we went out listening, we realized that a lot of people are thinking about these things, but they never call it circular. They don't wake up in the morning and think, I will be circular. But they wake up in the morning and they have ambitions with their things and they want to do the right thing. So how can we support them to solve those problems in a circular way? Yeah. That's our biggest learning so far.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. And would you have some aha moments or things that you would have done differently now you know this?
Yeah, I think we could have probably gone out earlier and listened to consumers, and then I think it's also about how we tell the story about circularity. Of course, it can be quite technical, and to really tell it from a people point of view and really getting an effect of that in the organization it can be tricky.
Yeah.
But we're learning as we go, and improving as we learn.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you're taking a step-by-step approach and you're really open-minded about going there. So I know that you're setting up experiments to validate assumptions you have and all of the ideas about how to move to circularity. Can you tell?
Oh, now I lost you.
I think we're back.
Now you're back.
Yeah. Did you get my question, or did we?
No, I didn't. Please say it again.
Yeah, no. So I know that you're taking a step-by-step approach, and that you're setting up experiments to see what works, what brings value to your customers. You're validating assumptions that we have in this shift to circular. How do you organize these teams in all these initiatives that are going on?
Yeah, I think that's one of the learnings, that how can we test quickly and small and learn, and really dare to test also, and then fail. And then we really try to take the starting point of the customer problems or consumer problem we have identified, and we see that those are, our starting point has been about the relationship to stuff, so how people want to restore value in things and looking into these value drivers. And then we look at also how people want to acquire things and own things, and also how many feel that they're having a lot of things, and the clutter aspect of circularity. Yep. So by starting with these three problems, we are trying to streamline our tests according to those, to also stay true to the consumer input and insights we have received.
Yeah, and I think that's why we like to work together so much, because we always take a consumer point of view as well, and really look where value is created in the future. When we talk about this future, what in 2030 would IKEA be for you? What would it look like?
Oh, that's a tricky one. But I think if we are a partner, when we design our products for a long life, we are using renewable and recycled resources, and then we have offers in place to support people to acquire, live with, and pass on products in a circular way, not being wasteful, and really making sure that all products live to their fullest. Yeah. That's what I hope that we see in 2030.
Yeah, so we have work ahead of us, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's interesting to go to the questions that are mentioned in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Because the audience is, one question that we see, has IKEA considered offering a sales channel for resale of used IKEA furniture?
I mean, the sales channel we have today is that we in many stores have this buyback and resell solution, where we actually then resell used IKEA products in the Assist corner. And then, as you mentioned before, we have some online collaboration partners in specific markets, where we also offer a more digital way of doing that.
Yeah, interesting. Then someone is mentioning, it sounds like very positive growth in reselling at IKEA. How are they adapting to additional infection control requirements for COVID? And does this potentially dampen the demand and their process to resell globally?
Good question.
Very good question. It's, of course, it looks very different in different markets, also depending on the situation, and of course the safety of the customer and co-workers is always our most important focus. So we have adapted depending on the situation in specific markets, for what is available at different times.
Yeah. And do you think COVID is actually accelerating the transition to a circular economy now that we actually have the chance to redesign business models faster than we, might have wanted to?
Yeah. Of course, it's hard to tell. It's we're in the middle of it, and it will be difficult to see what the effect it has on circularity specifically. But of course, it is affecting all of us.
Yeah. Someone also is mentioning, can IKEA also, like Patagonia, purposely repair and upcycle their products sold, then becoming the largest furniture recycle retailer in the world?
It sounds fantastic, of course. And when we look at how we support people to care for their products, the spare parts offer is our starting point. But of course, we're also looking into other aspects of how we can prolong the life of products. And really making sure they live to their fullest.
Yeah. He's also mentioning from IKEA to ReKea.
It's a good one. I think you also tap into a big platform of consumers that's actually very loving about IKEA. When you, for example, look at IKEA hacks, you can find millions and millions of inspiration videos of people who actually inspire IKEA to see what they can do with their products, which I think is a nice platform to see the furniture in a different light of day.
Does IKEA calculate their footprint per product using methods like LCA, life cycle assessment?
I mean, we are looking into our impact, of course, and I cannot go into any details, but I'm also happy to refer that question back to our climate expert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we totally understand. And then maybe a jump, but that's more to a different kind of industry. What are your thoughts and ideas about circular economy in the food industry?
Ooh, of course, there are lots of opportunities.
No hot dogs anymore.
Yeah, I don't dare to. We have started by focusing on our products in the team I'm working with. The IKEA food, which is the development is mainly done by IKEA, are looking into the innovation in the food sector. So I will need to come back to that person with more info.
Yeah. Nice. Not all consumers, and that has something to do, of course, with the validation part as well. Not all consumers think about sustainability and circularity, but just want to consume, whereby price seems a big trigger. Is there a big price difference between normal and sustainable circular producing? And how do you go about that challenge who want to buy cheap?
Yeah.
And how do you then educate them?
For us, we never compromise on the sustainability compared to price. At IKEA, you don't pay a premium for sustainable products.
Okay.
That's how we already from designing them. So there is no difference in that sense. And our ambition is, of course, with having these design criteria for how we design products in a circular way, and then using renewable and recycled material, that all our products will be as circular as possible.
Yeah.
No matter price.
No, indeed. And you talked also about educate, right? To help them actually solve those challenges instead of just producing it and selling stuff, right? That's also what you mentioned in it.
Yeah.
How far in progress is IKEA with the idea to offer a solution for a problem and become a platform operator where they rent furniture and stay the owner?
Yeah, we are trying some concepts connected to furniture as a service, as we call it, where we're looking into how can we give access to furniture without the customer having to own.
Yeah.
And we're doing a number of tests in different markets on that topic. Now I think I lost you again.
Yeah, we get many questions, so therefore immediately the next one. How do you evaluate value alignment during the recruitment process? What's worked and what hasn't?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't dare to answer that, but I'm happy to put that person in connection to our HR department. We have also, of course, an idea about a coworker idea of how we as coworkers approach our values, and also how we approach learning throughout our lives, you can say, and how that's connected to IKEA. But I'm happy to get back on more answers on that to whoever is curious.
What I think is super nice to see working with different teams within IKEA is that everybody is super aligned on the bigger vision and the 2030 sustainable strategy. Cool. So I think this is really a compliment on leadership, on how people are involved and how you can get your story across to everybody within the organization. So I do think that's I'm interested actually to see the answer to the question, because I see a lot of different people, different backgrounds, different nationalities that I work with, but all of them are super IKEA minded and aware of what they're achieving together. So yeah, I'm happy to see the answer there, actually, to be honest.
It's always fun to come to a new IKEA unit, no matter where it is in the world. I always feel like home.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Let me see, what are or have been the main challenges for IKEA as a company when focusing on innovation, on circularity versus the normal one? So you mentioned indeed some circularity challenges, right? Do you also see them on innovation on that part, like normal innovation?
I think every innovation is has the sustainability design criteria, which I think is the way forward.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if there's such a big difference. I used to work with business development also within the area of payments, for example, and I see that we approach it in a similar way. And no matter if it's for that, in that specific case, it was very technology heavy, but of course it's about the testing, and it's about figuring out what kind of problems are we trying to solve, and then keep on iterating the solution.
Yeah.
Nice. I think we have time for one more question from the audience.
Yeah, I have a final one. What variations do you see in consumer adoption stickiness across geographies for circular or recyclable products?
Ooh, that's a good question. If I look at it not only at products, but like the offer we have, we see that there are differences, of course, across the markets. We see that in some markets, more mature markets, it's some kind of problems. If we look at the kind of, for example, the clutter issue, and then we see in markets where there is a growing consuming middle class, there are other problems, but also sometimes the clutter problem also there, because we live in smaller spaces, and moving into cities also means that we need to think about how the stuff we have. I think so there are also some cultural differences, of course, connected to consumption and how we view things, and that we also see across markets differences. But I think, as I said before, what's really uniting people across markets is that no matter where we go, we see that people don't want to be wasteful, and there could be different reasons for not wanting to be wasteful, but still it's something that most of us feel bad about. Throwing away something that is functioning, or not being able to be wasteful. It's the same space.
Yeah, and I think this also confirms that going circular and designing out waste is a business for business.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of people in the audience that are super curious to get some do-it-yourself tips. If they want to embark on the journey to a circular business model, or they're on the journey, what would be some tips that you can give them?
Ooh, I mean, it's to look at what you have and think about what you need, and maybe you can upgrade it or you can repurpose it. What we always say is that you need to be super careful when repurposing, of course, that it doesn't interfere with the safety of the product. But to really think about what you have and what you could do with it. And many of our products are also like system products, parts of families. So sometimes you can also upgrade your products from a range that is available in the stores to ensure that you can keep the product longer than you would have otherwise.
Yeah. And when you look at it from a business point of view, what would you say if you want to design your own circular business model? What are some of the tips? We heard that you said take a consumer-centric approach. What are some of the tips on that angle?
I think it's just really, like, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's been really useful for us to go out and listen and to be curious, figure out what problems there are to solve. And then based on that, looking at it through a circular lens and see what opportunities are there to solve those in a circular way.
I think that's a good summary of the conversation. Lisa, I see that there's more and more questions coming in, but due to time constraints, what we'll do is we'll collect, and the most popular questions we'll discuss and send in the recap email of the session.
Sure.
So thank you if you stick around a bit longer, because we want to see what we can do together to see how we can design our next step towards a circular economy. And I think it's very much in line, Lisa, with what you just said, because there's 3 things I think we can do tomorrow, all of us. It's rethink. We really need to rethink where we are today and where we want to be in 10 years. And look at organizations that are outside of your own. Like Lisa said, look outside of your own organization. Take a look at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, as we mentioned before, but also the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. They are a great framework for you guys to take a look at and see what you can do as an organization. So if you start working on any of the pillars tomorrow, we are already co-creating the future together. And then the second step would be redesigning your own business model. Just print the A4 paper of the 9 building blocks and see what it would look like if you would design out waste. What would it look like if you partner with companies like IKEA or like Patagonia is working together with Trove? Just really make some sketches of your current business model and see what it could look like in the future in a sustainable way. And then I think IKEA is a great example. Just start. Because we cannot wait any longer, and just start super small and do it together. Really start testing the assumptions you have, speak to your customers, talk to consumers, because they're full of insights that will help you move forward. Because ultimately what we want to do is really move away from selling stuff to customers to creating value for people and planet.
So we believe that going on that circular journey is actually the only way forward. Thank you for joining BMI Inspires the 15th edition. As mentioned, we will send a recap with maybe some extra answers on the questions. You will get a recording, and we would love to invite you for the next BMI Inspires, where we can inspire you again on a different topic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.